What's up, Starcraft fans? Today we're doing the tier list for Train of Pain on Oblivion Express. Brian, let's hear the mutation.
Oblivion Express is the map where we have to destroy trains. They come in from the west, mainly along 2 tracks, and we have to destroy 9 of them to win the game. If we miss more than 1 train on brutal difficulty, we lose the game. Your units deal their damage back to themselves when they attack. Random nukes and hybrid nukes are also in the game.
Alright, so we have Twotuuu and Sticksbender in the call with us today. How are you guys?
Good.
Good? Really? Alright.
Doing well. Yeah.
Alright, that makes 2 of us. Twotuuu, how will we rank the commanders this week?
So this week, the biggest mutator, of course, is double-edged. So commanders that are generally good against double-edged will be fine here. Don't forget that mutually assured destruction is a thing. It's actually not a big problem until near the end, because hybrid destroyers produce small nukes, so you can dodge those pretty easily. The 7th train, that in the second double trains, the top one will have 2 destroyers, 2 reavers.
Yeah.
And the 9th train will have reavers and
2
reavers and a behemoth.
Yes.
And then if there's a 10th train, then there'll be like 4 reavers.
Ooh, that's painful. How about you, Sticksbender?
So basically, double-edged is oftentimes a problem for a lot of commanders, but it becomes especially a problem here because a lot of commanders can solve double-edged by saying, that's okay, I can use this low DPS army that will still be able to beat things eventually because it's durable or has good self-healing or whatever. The problem with trains is that they have a lot of health and they kind of aren't waiting around for you to shoot them. They just kind of stroll on by, and if you don't shoot them really hard, really fast, they just leave, which makes you not win, which is unfortunate, and it should be avoided.
Yes.
So you kind of want to have basically commanders who can put out high DPS despite double-edged, either by having
Top bar.
large numbers of units with like good access to healing and damage to make them hold out as they keep shooting the train constantly, or just damage that lets you cheat double-edged and ignore the double-edged damage.
Yes, that makes sense. Let's begin. Alarak, where do we have him?
Alarak hates double-edged. Like, he hates it. He has one thing, though, that he can do, which is stalkers. He could just mass stalkers. Yeah. And ironically, those stalkers actually are also the ideal thing to counter both of the other mutators. So Alarak is kind of in a good situation here in that all 3 of the mutators get countered by the exact same strategy from Alarak.
Nice.
However,
phasing armor.
However, that strategy is still having to counter double-edged, which is really mean for Alarak. So what you do have going for you is, your stalkers do have phasing armor, and if they attack while the phasing armor is up, it won't damage them with double-edged because they are invulnerable. They will just not take damage from that. Another note is that phasing armor actually does end up giving you kind of like a random chance of surviving mess-ups, because what will happen is if all your stalkers attack, then they all proc phasing armor at the same time. It's all synchronized because they all attack and damage themselves and proc phasing armor.
Yeah.
And then they get hit by a nuke during that time. You might just get lucky and the nuke just doesn't kill you. This is not something reliable, but it is a nice thing to have as like there's just always a chance that you don't die due to a screw up, which usually we talk about commanders where it's like a weakness where they have a chance to just die all of a sudden out of nowhere. Alarak has a chance to just survive all of a sudden out of nowhere. So that's fun. But yeah, basically what you're going to do, keep Alarak out of the fight, use entirely your stalkers. Be careful, they can kill themselves if they fire for a prolonged period with double-edged. Remember that if they're move commanding, they can't be shooting. So literally move command them back and forth, have them pace back and forth if you need them to stop shooting so they don't kill themselves, because if they keep firing unchecked, they will kill themselves. Probably he can actually manage to make, I'm kind of feeling like saying B, but the problem is there are some enemy compositions that will really, really mess up your stalkers, in which case he's like C or something.
Okay. How about you, Twotuuu?
Overcharge is good.
Yeah.
That doesn't get affected by double edge. I recommend using P0, not so that the mothership it comes with 3 destroyers. Mothership will kill itself, and then the destroyers will stay around a little bit longer and use stalkers. Also, I forgot to mention, but you probably shouldn't upgrade weapons, at least not all the way to level 3. You might want a level 1, maybe level 2, but not level 3 weapons for most commanders.
Okay.
You deal too much damage.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So the stalker strat is fine. If you're fighting Zerglings, Alarak can be a call down. You just go to the wave by himself, wave his arms, he gets himself killed, and a lot of the lings are dead. You can do the destruction wave, enter warp prism strat, but that's extremely difficult, even harder than the 1Q 2AE whatever.
Yeah, if you can do that, you don't need this tier list.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that hard. It's very, very simple. It's just you use destructive wave, and the instant he starts the casting animation, you right click on the prism. It's very simple. It's just that it's probably hard. If you're expecting to do that like consistently, probably not. You're probably going to, mess it up at some point, and you just kind of have to expect that. I'm willing to sacrifice the prism to see if I can actually save Alarak and let him get multiple destructive waves off.
That makes sense.
But,
in practice, you'll use a destruction wave. You manage to get Alarak in the warp prism, then the warp prism gets sniped by a scourge. That's what'll happen.
Well, that's just because you missed your destructive wave. It's supposed to one-shot the scourge. Come on. But yeah, basically. The bigger note I would make before passing it back to Twotuuu, I'm sorry for interrupting, is just make sure if you are using Alarak as a call down, make sure he is very far away from your army, or else he'll just eat your army and also die, which sucks.
Yes. So, letter Twotuuu.
So I would Stalkers, once the enemies are dead, then he can deal train damage, but it takes a while before he kills the enemies because Stalkers deal so little damage compared to Alarak's other options, and later on the waves get pretty strong.
Yeah.
So Stalkers are your best choice, but they're not a great choice. They're not great. So I would say the highest would be C.
Okay, C is fine for me. I actually had him in D, but C is fine. We were saying no prestige, right? All right, let's put him in C.
Yeah, I would agree. No prestige. P1 would be fine if you wanna. It's okay. It might make your Stalkers a little better feeling, but they'll just kill themselves. So it's
it will make Alarak himself worse feeling because he used distraction wave. It kills Alarak, but it doesn't kill the wave.
Well, hey, again, the first attack wave, it might make Alarak stronger feeling because he doesn't outright kill himself with a destructive wave.
But it doesn't do anything to the wave. Then the wave kills him.
There's a lot of comp dependence here for Alarak. I think that saying that Stalkers aren't a great option is underestimating how good Stalkers are against comps that Stalkers are good against. But you can't guarantee you're going to get comps that Stalkers are good against. So yeah, he could easily suck.
Can you theoretically just wall with hold position Havocs and then snipe the train?
No.
Oh well.
No, Alarak has no train sniping option that doesn't kill itself with double-edged.
Oh well. All right, let's have Alarak and C. Arcturus, where do we have him?
You can't use ESOs.
Yeah, he's not double S.
No, but you can use bunkers. So you just have armed troopers and you drop bunkers and they can take a nuke shot. You probably don't want to build a bunker while you're fighting because even if you mass build, that's time not shooting.
Yeah.
But you can drop bunkers, unload them, give them weapons, put them back in, and then they'll probably tank some shots from the enemies while the rest of your army continues shooting. If you're using P2 or not P3, then you have medevacs that can heal you. Although I think P3 is just fine. P3 weapons are stronger.
Yeah.
I still put him in A.
How about you, Sticksbender?
I do think P3 weapons are fine, but I actually would personally prefer to not be P3 because I think that the medevacs plus just no weapons troopers with medevacs don't kill themselves with double-edged, and they have decent enough DPS with all their individual one supply bodies that with a big ball of troopers you can DPS down the train, and yet those troopers won't kill themselves.
Yeah.
Which means that if you just go with just a massive ball of troopers and medevacs and nothing else, then you can do okay. Now you will have some problems with splash damage, and then that's where comes in the bunker drops because you drop bunkers in front. The guys inside of bunkers, you can even give them guns if you are quick enough about it, but they can just basically, the bunkers will be a buffer. They can eat the splash damage because all those big scary tanks and colossi or reavers or whatever will still shoot whatever's closest to them. So if whatever's closest to them is a single bunker that doesn't get one-shotted instead of a ball of troopers, they'll shoot the bunker.
Yeah.
So just a big swarm of troopers with medevacs, just very boring, simple, straightforward army will prove very, very effective against most comps. Because it's most comps, that's the only thing that I have that's holding me back from saying he's S tier, but he's very solid. You can use all those troopers. You have a very good top bar as always. You can still use Nuke, Rain, and Zerg just fine, and they will just maul trains still.
Yeah.
So, and because you're making this massive swarm of troopers, if you have your massive swarm of troopers under a blimp, you will have infinite energy for top bar. So it's only cooldown based, basically. So
Yeah.
you can just freely just chuck nukes, chuck Zerg. You'll have Zerg up for practically every train, so that's a big deal.
Yeah.
I feel like he can be. He's kind of an S candidate, but in pretty much entirely because Reaver Disruptor exists. That is
Yeah.
like the one Achilles heel that's like making me say, okay, I'm not entirely certain about putting him in S.
I actually had him in S because I could just make Earth Splitters, not to use them offensively, but just to use the Contaminated Strike to fear the attack wave so that they don't actually attack you. That's why I have it
The
in
problem
S.
is the Contaminated Strike will still damage the Earth Splitters.
I'll just rebuild them. you don't
Well,
need to
technically, no. What you do, if you really want to do Earth
salvage or
Splitters, what
something?
you can do is you salvage them. Yes, you fire the Contaminated Strike. As soon as the Contaminated Strike fires,
You salvage
instantly
them.
hit salvage on all your Earth Splitters.
Yeah.
They will finish salvaging before the Contaminated Strike actually starts dealing damage, and so they will all salvage and you'll get all your money back. And then you have to rebuild them. This
Yeah.
is very micro-intensive.
Bro,
If you want
you
other
say-
micro-intensive strategies that Manx can do, you can go for ghosts, or more accurately, a ghost with a whole bunch of ghost academies. You fire all the nukes, and then after firing all the nukes, before the nukes land, you jump the ghost into a medevac. It takes no damage, and all the nukes land and just vaporize everything, which is great. Gives you a very powerful AoE burst damage option, which is able to wipe waves for you. It's very strong if you're willing to try it, but basically expect that you're going to lose some ghosts to miss micro. I lose a couple ghosts to miss micro, but you have a lot of gas lying around because your army is entirely trooper medevacs, so it isn't the end of the world if you lose a couple ghosts.
All right. What do I say,
The bigger
Tutu?
expense, honestly, is the ghost academies themselves.
What do I say, Tutu?
Oh, you said like making ESOs and like mass building them is micro intensive, yet
Yeah.
Contaminated Strike salvaging is not.
I mean,
Plus worrying about
I'm
army.
not saying it's not micro intensive. I'm just saying that it'll make you have much fewer things to worry about when you don't have to fight attack waves because they've been confused in their spot. That's why I have it
You're
in S.
gonna
But
lose like 1,000 something minerals and gas if you don't salvage them on time.
they don't do a lot of damage, do they? Especially if you don't
You're gonna
have
hit a
the.
spot where they spawn. There are gonna be other enemies there.
I
If you're
guess that
hitting a
makes
weak
sense.
wave, then you might as well not hit them. If you're hitting a strong wave, that's gonna be way enough more than enough damage.
More than enough damage to destroy all of them? All of them? I guess that makes sense.
Most of them at least.
Anyway, well, he's still A, so I'm just saying that that's one of your options.
You will definitely want to salvage the Earth Splitters if you're using that option.
Artanis.
100%.
Artanis, where do we have him?
And this is actually quite good here. So firstly, if you are one of those people who likes Guardian Shell, good news everybody. Because of double-edged, with fancy new double-edged technology, your Dragoons can now heal. Because what will happen is that if you get the shield regen in combat upgrade, your Dragoons will fire at the enemies. They will take shield damage from the shields that are actively regenerating in combat, and then double-edged will heal them over time for life health. And so they will get back their entire health bar. So even after having Guardian Shell proc, they'll go back into the green. Also, while Guardian Shell is up, they can just keep firing for 5 seconds and healing from double-edged and not taking damage from double-edged because they don't take damage from double-edged while firing during Guardian Shell, but they do keep healing from double-edged during Guardian Shell.
That's really cool.
Or alternatively, you could just go P3 and say, hey, look, everybody, I have shield overcharge for every single train, which is also an option. In
Also
which
an
case,
option.
yeah, shield overcharge just makes your Dragoons not die. And also, again, they deal damage. It deals damage to the shields from shield overcharge, and they heal health. So, yeah, Dragoons are just going to be very, very effective here. The advantage of using Guardian Shell is that it helps for the nukes, including the hybrid nukes, so that if you mess up and get hit by one of those nukes, your Dragoons will survive. And as we established, they'll just heal back up. And you'll still have shield overcharge for most of the trains, even if not in P3. So, whichever you prefer for prestige. And I think there's an argument for Artanis S, but there's definitely commanders who are even easier. But Dragoons are very good. Oh, right, there's also comp dependent, so I guess I would have to put him in A for the same reason as Manx. I have to remember comp dependent is a
Okay.
problem.
How about you, Tutu?
Not much to add. I just was gonna say I wouldn't put them in S because of enemy comp.
Enemy
Some
comps.
of them, those
Yeah.
heavy armor hitting comps will kind of hurt. They'll hurt, even though they're Dragoons. Like they'll hurt a little. So
Honestly, I'd
and
rather
also-
I'd rather face any of the heavy armor comps than Zerglings.
that
Zerglings are the
too.
bigger one. Zerglings are the main problem.
All right.
The other issue is that like if you're unlucky with nukes, they body block each other a lot. So you're gonna have to like split them. And if you're splitting one way and you have to like walk towards the enemy, you can't fire at them because you're walking.
Then the-
I mean, even if you're shield overcharged, you're still getting hit, but you're just you're just spending your time trying to dodge a nuke, which
Then-
kind of sucks if you're unlucky.
then the area you're running off to is also being targeted by another nuke.
Yeah, that happens sometimes. So you just like
It does
running from
happen.
nukes.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I put him in A. He's really solid.
Yeah. I actually had him in B, but both of you say A, so let's have him in A. Dehaka, where do we have him?
Dehaka's pack leaders ignore.
They ignore
double edge
everything. They actually ignore everything.
Wait, they ignore double edges? I thought
Now
they
they
actually
do.
now they do. That's new.
As of one of the two recent patch, one of the two community fixes, the community patches, they now ignore double edge. So
Thank you, Tangarcraft.
Amazing. I do not feel inclined to believe that was intentional.
That's
Yeah.
definitely not intentional.
It made this a lot easier. I remember I tried this before the patch, just like a while back, and I was like, man, this is difficult because everything's dying, and then suddenly, oh, they don't
Nothing's
die
dying.
now, so I can just walk over this mutation. Yeah, so I put Dehaka in A.
Wait, why not S?
The enemy, because you're gonna use creeper hosts, and creeper hosts aren't great against. They're not good consistent damage against trains.
Ah, that makes sense. But you're a bit okay. That makes sense. Yeah, I'm okay with. Oh, how about you, Sticksbender?
Yeah, that's not exact. Yeah, that's similar, but not exactly the same as the reason I would have basically said, yeah, he's not quite S due to just a lack of consistency in his strength, because it's kind of like you have top bar that it's very strong during its uptime, which is almost universal uptime. But you're not going to just have like, an army that can just walk around killing everything. You have top bar that can slam into something. It can't teleport unless Glevig. And then your creeper host have to add train damage, because that's the only really option you have to add train damage, which is it's slightly clunky, but like overall, the pack leaders are just going to step on everything. Roar, smash, big dino, A tier.
All right, let's have him in A. Han and Horner, where do we have him?
Han and Horner is great. The top bars, like the mag lines, P1 mag lines, great. Strike fighters, they kill themselves, so they take 60 seconds to come back to rebuild.
Yeah.
No, is it 2 minutes?
60 seconds.
2 minutes, 60 seconds.
Yeah.
The cooldown is 60 seconds, isn't it? When they don't die.
I think it's actually. I think it's the same. Or
The cooldown on them if they don't die is 60 seconds. The rebuild time is 120 seconds.
oh
So,
well.
yeah, but either way, if they die, like waves come every 3 minutes, trains come every 3 minutes. So basically, even if they have to rebuild, you'll have them ready for the next train, and you'll be able to take out most of the units. And Reapers, as long as you don't get +3 weapons, you don't want +3 weapons, they will kill themselves so fast. You can see the difference. If you get up to +2, you will just deal tons of damage. They can jump up cliffs to hide from. Nukes. The carrier galleons, since they're not the main source of damage, if the interceptors get nuked, you don't have to care that much. It doesn't really matter. I put Han Horner in A because of slight comp dependence, but they're really solid.
How about you, Sticksbender?
I don't really have much to add for Han and Horner because, yeah, basically what Twotuuu said. Strike fighters are entirely expendable because it's free to replace the strike fighter. It just doubles the cooldown, which is not the end of the world. Reapers are able to handle double-edged as long as you don't get +3 weapons. I have also run into the problem of getting +3 weapons, and oh look, my Reapers all died. Still be careful, because if the Raven shines its laser pointer on a train car and all your Reapers are shooting that train car, they can still figure out how to kill themselves. So just pay attention to your Reapers. Watch their health bars. If you don't have health bars enabled, you should. It will make it a lot easier to use Han and Horner here, because if you don't have it, you're going to find that your Reapers just spontaneously all die and you had no warning. But if you have health bars enabled, you'll see, oh, my Reaper's getting low. I should stop firing for a little bit.
Use health bars,
and
guys.
as long as you do that, you'll be fine. You'll honestly be fine. Because Reapers are a 1 supply unit, which, by the way, are actually surprisingly rare in this game. 1 supply combat units are surprisingly rare in this game. Because they're a 1 supply combat unit, it means that you can get so many of them on the field. And the double-edged heal back rate is a flat amount, regardless of the supply cost of the unit. So effectively, the more supply you have on the field, the more health you're regenerating back, the more damage you can do against the trains despite double-edged. So yeah, Han and Horner are a pretty solid choice that, again, basically only really stumbles because of comp dependence.
So letter A?
A, yeah.
All right, cool. I actually had him in C, but yeah, very convincing. Let's have Han and Horner A. So we are assuming the first prestige here, right? Chaotic power couple?
Yes.
I don't think it's absolutely necessary, but I would definitely consider it the best.
Yeah, it's their prestige, as I mentioned earlier. There we go. Karax, where do we have him?
So Karax, technically speaking, I will bring up the fact that people have done pure top bar solos with Karax of this map, where you literally don't deal any damage whatsoever except with your top bar, and it works. It's a thing that Karax can do. So, given that your top bar can do that, obviously we can't expect that everyone's going to have that perfect of top bar control, and also we can't expect the enemy comp to always be perfectly cooperative. However, we can expect that means that the amount that your top bar can do is huge, huge, and the amount that the combined total of your ally and all of your units and structures have to do in damage to, you know, make up for top bar imperfections is not going to be that much, because your top bar is going to do most of the heavy lifting when it comes to damage.
Yeah.
So Karax is going to be really happy with that. Technically speaking, Karax can also snipe trains from in the base with Kadaran monoliths, because with shield battery plus repair beam, as long as you either A, have enough monoliths to just kill the train before the monoliths kill themselves, or B, have few enough monoliths that you can repair beam all of them at once, they can fire for a pretty long time before dying. So as long as it's just like they're a bit of extra supporting DPS on top of your top bar and your ally and maybe some units you add. Karax has carriers, and his carriers rebuild interceptors a lot faster than Phoenix. That's an important note. Plus the interceptors themselves get Unity Barrier, which means they survive the first nuke that hits them. With all that in consideration, yeah, Karax I think should be an S tier.
What do you think,
Totally.
Twotuuu?
Your top bar can do almost everything, and you can just use either cannons, monoliths, carriers, whichever you choose to just fill in the rest. You can even just use Mass Zealot. His Zealots are a fine unit, honestly. You could use Energizers if the enemy has mech.
Steal them too, yeah.
Yeah, it like honestly, it doesn't really, just as long as you aren't, you know, eating too many nukes, and as long as you aren't like using immortals that'll melt themselves. Well, even if you use immortals, they'll melt themselves, but they can get a fair bit of damage before they get low, and then you just pull them back. So honestly, Karax shouldn't be picky on what you use. You could basically use whatever you want on Karax, I think, and as long as you are using P3 and you're relying very heavily on top bar, he's S tier. If you are not P3, he is not at all S tier.
Okay, what do you think, Twotuuu?
P2 should also be S.
Yeah, I think so too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I used P2.
So-
It was very easy.
The difference between Karax and Phoenix is Unity Barrier, and that's the difference between a C and S. So, like without using the top bar at all, I think he would still be S, because his carriers with Unity Barrier mean that you don't have to care so much about the nukes. The problem with Phoenix's carriers was that you gotta care about the nukes.
Yeah.
And so Karax is S.
Yeah. So basically,
Alright, then.
Phoenix has carriers, but Karax has I don't carriers, so that's why he's S.
That, and also like I kind of want to check now the stats. Zeus, shove the numbers on screen for the build time of the interceptors. I can't remember exactly, but the Phoenix carrier has a longer build time on interceptors than Karax carrier. That was a nerf that Blizzard implemented to Phoenix carriers because for some reason Monk decided he just really hated Phoenix for a while there. He just kept nerfing Phoenix carriers relentlessly for a while there. And then he rolled back some of the nerfs, but we kept the increased build time. So
Cool.
yeah.
Let's move on. Kerrigan, where do we have him?
Kerrigan kills herself if you're not careful. Like, she gets shields from attacking, but if you're not careful, you're gonna deal too much damage. Once you get Brood Lords going, then all Kerrigan really does is snipe air units. However, if you get a heavy air comp, you're in trouble. You're in a lot of trouble.
You spell
ground
Megworms
comps are
distract
fine.
them.
Yeah, because you can, if you immobilization wave, sometimes she lives through it, sometimes she doesn't, and I don't know why that happens. I mean, it's something about the edges of the immobilization wave, and if it hits enough stuff there, but it's hard to guarantee she will live every time. So yeah, I think she should be in C.
Ooh, heavy comp dependence. How about you, Sticksbender?
So with the immobilization wave, yeah, it's basically the immobilization wave radius is 32. The radius that it goes to before she loses invulnerability is 28. So the gap between 28 radius and 32 radius is where she can take damage from anything that gets caught in the immobilization wave.
That's
there.
funky math.
Yeah, because of this map,
That
on
has to
most
be a bug,
maps,
right?
It's fine.
That has to be a
On
bug,
most
right?
Maps, it's fine.
Yeah?
You could argue it's a bug. I don't know. On most maps, it's fine because if you're using this on the edge of a base, then what's going to happen is that most of that area inside that rim isn't going to be in the enemy base. The problem with Oblivion Express is if you're using it on the train and the rim goes through that entire enemy base that lines the entire wall of the map, it can actually put enough units there to kill Kerrigan.
That's
Even
crazy.
then, it's still not particularly likely, but if there's any map where it has a good chance of happening, it's this map, so that is a slight pain point. However, if Kerrigan does die from that, she has 1,200 hit points, so she has to hit a fair bit to die from it. But if she does die from it, what were you doing with her other than a mobilization wave anyways? Helpfully, Kerrigan's immobilization wave cooldown progresses while Kerrigan is dead. Very helpfully. And it has less than a 3-minute cooldown, which means you have a mobilization wave for every single train. So Kerrigan is just gonna, every single train past 10 minutes because it has a 10-minute cooldown period. But once you get your first mobilization wave, you'll have one for every single train as long as you have ability efficiency. So Kerrigan is basically just going to be an immobilization wave bot. I would recommend P3 because that way Kerrigan can at least be somewhat useful, especially if you end up getting an air comp. She can just sit back and just kinetic blast occasionally, because not only will she get shields from the damage dealt by the kinetic blast, but the damage dealt to herself of double-edged will also generate shields, which means she can actually fire out kinetic blasts relatively freely without killing herself. Her health will go down from shooting those kinetic blasts, but it'll take a while for her to kill herself if she's not like getting shot at by enemies and she's not basic attacking. So if you just have Kerrigan become a sniper sitting off in the back, firing kinetic blast at air units and not doing anything else, no taking damage other ways, no shooting other ways, or if you use her for crushing grip, that does relatively little damage, then she'll be able to support without dying. So then Kerrigan can make herself useful. And then immobilization wave, you go full immobilization wave damage. Against some comps, that'll just wipe out most of the train escort, like single-handedly. So she's not terrible. However, you are entirely dependent on your army to do basically everything. You really want a ground comp so you can just mass Broodlords. If it's not a ground comp, I would say you're probably going to want to just mass Hydralisks, which is not as good because Hydralisks can kill themselves. However, again, it comes back to they probably won't kill themselves. If you've used a mobilization wave on the enemy train escort and then you have the Hydralisk fight the train escort, they'll probably be able to kill the whole escort before they get to the point where they're going to kill themselves with double-edged. So then it just becomes, okay, they killed the train escort or the train escort. Now we let them heal. We make sure they don't shoot the train until they've healed. And now the awkward part is shooting the train and then telling them to stop firing so they don't kill themselves, and lots of over excessive microing to shoot a train. But nothing should be shooting back at you during that period, so it shouldn't be too bad.
Letter.
She's obviously not going to be a super high tier, but I don't think she's utterly terrible. I think that she could go into C despite the comp dependence, because I think that her Hydralisks would be like low C and her Broodlords would put her at like high C, maybe low B.
So both of you have him in C. I had him in B, but both of you had him in C, so let's put him in C. Nova, where do we have him?
Oh boy, Nova. So Nova, the good news is that you can have Griffin Airstrike for like everything on this map, because the map starts out slow enough that you can just mine enough minerals and bank enough minerals that past a certain point, attack wave, Griffin Airstrike, train, Griffin Airstrike, everything, Griffin Airstrike. And for destroying the trains themselves, your tanks can just barf spider mines at them.
Spider mines.
Tons of spider mines.
That's a lot of minerals.
And spider mines, you know, we don't care because they, you know, they explode when they attack, so they are already dying either way. And it's only 5 minerals per mine and a lot of damage, so it's not nearly as expensive as you might think. For the spider mine, the big expense is Griffin Airstrikes. Against the ground comp, Nova's great, honestly. She'll just spider mine barf everything to death and it'll be glorious. Against an air comp, it'll be a bit awkward. You still have Ravens, which can make auto turrets to buffer, but you're basically going to have to use Marines with the Ravens healing and using auto turrets to buffer for air comps. And then spider mine tanks will just sit behind, plus airstrike, and then spider mine tanks will just sit behind and bar spider mines on the trains. Air comps are going to be a little bit weird because I'm not sure actually how you'll want to balance the ratio of Marines to airstrikes for that, because obviously you want to be able to airstrike everything, but you also want to have enough Marines to, you know, not have to kill every single air unit with airstrikes alone.
All right, fair.
I don't know. Basically, it comes down to she's very comp dependent. Against a ground comp, oh man, she's going to have an easy time. Against an air comp, sketchy.
Letter.
I feel like she's kind of B tier because she's A tier against ground, C tier against air.
What do you think, Twotuuu?
I use Banshees. I think Banshees don't kill themselves when you hit the train.
That's interesting.
I don't, but aren't spider mines 50 minerals for 3 of them?
15. Yeah, 15 for
15 for 3.
So it's 5 each.
Oh, it's 15. I always thought it was 50 for some reason.
Yeah, I played plenty of Nova against double-edged trains. You could totally just wipe them out with spider mines. It is not a big expense. It's fine. You don't need to use Banshees. Just use tanks. Be careful. The tanks, by basic attacking, will kill themselves, but they'll kill themselves slowly. So you have plenty of response time. It's not like it'll just, you know, suddenly jump out at you. Oh, shoot, my tanks killed themselves without any warning. No, they'll shoot for a prolonged period, and it's like, you should pay attention to your tanks, sir. They're gonna die.
I would say Banshees are better because they fly. So
they can,
if they fly, you can dodge nukes much more easily. And you can.
I mean, you have Griffin Airlift too, but yeah.
That makes sense.
Defense drone. You defense drone like because if you're P1, you also, if you're going Banshees, you get Ravens too, so you get more turrets. But if you're going like P0 or something to get tanks plus Ravens or something, if you're going P1 tanks, then you don't have as many Ravens.
If it's a ground comp, you don't need anything except tanks, honestly. You literally don't need anything except tanks, Nova, and Griffin Airstrike against ground comp. It's only against air comp that it gets weird, because it's like you basically need to rely heavily on Marines, and you also kind of want tanks for taking out trains, although honestly, I would say if you are P1 against an air comp, go for the barracks, get the Marines, get your 1 or 2 Ravens to heal the Marines, and then get your 1 or 2 pairs of tanks to spit spider mines.
Interesting.
But basically, the tanks are just spitting spider mines to give a little bit of added DPS, but your Marines can actually shoot the train pretty fine. They'll kill themselves eventually, but as long as you're watching them, they can do a lot of damage to the train. So
P1
it should
generally doesn't have that many minerals to spare for airstrikes.
Yeah, it's basically like if it's an air comp, it's like you
not
just
P1,
are gonna run thin on minerals.
P1 barracks doesn't have many minerals to spare.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, B, I guess.
All right.
B, C-ish.
All right, that's fair. Let's put him in B. Raynor, where do we have him?
Raynor, so his bio doesn't care, and he has spider mine, and he can mine a ton of
mines.
minerals.
Yes.
So his only problem is AoE, like storms and reaver disruptors.
And nukes.
So aside from that, you're just playing like what you normally do. If you don't like bio with like spider mines, like that's a lot of micro, but the strategy itself is not very complicated. I think A is reasonable for that.
I agree. What do you think, Sticksbender?
I feel like he's actually an S candidate, I'm gonna be honest with you.
Oh. Yeah, Lila did make him look like a strong S, but then again, it's Lila.
But
So.
for the sole problem of microing against mutually assured destruction, I can see him going down to A for most of us mere mortals. So
Okay.
yeah.
The thing is, you have to macro while like, because some people they're not like super fast, so they're like worried that a nuke will drop if they're not paying attention.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they won't drop.
Always
nukes
control
until, like,
group
their
your
army's
barracks.
back at base or something.
Yeah.
It's especially important to learn this for Jimmy. If you are a Jimmy player and
Control
you
group your
really,
barracks.
if you're a Jimmy player and you want to do well with Jimmy's bio, biggest skill to learn is just control group your barracks and set the rally point for your barracks on a marauder or a marine or whatever in your army, so you don't ever have to look at your base. You just rain
gotta drop the
dudes by
depots.
selecting your barracks and holding down the build marine key.
Still
Never
got
have
a
to look
mule,
away from your
so
beautiful.
you do have to look
Except to
at the
mule,
base.
except to upgrade. But during combat, you're not muling during combat. You're just making sure more Marines are raining down during combat. So while you're actively fighting, you can just keep staring at your army. And then when you want to mule, well, you could do that during downtime when you'll have walked your army back into your base into the safe zones where there's no nukes.
All right.
And then you can mule, and then you'll be fine.
All right, so A.
A works. Yeah.
Which prestige do we specify? No
Oh, yeah,
prestige?
P0.
Yeah, no
All the way
prestige.
P0.
Cool. Stat boy, where do we have him?
Stetmann. So Zerglings don't care about anything at all, literally. Yeah, Gary cares.
Gary does
unfortunately.
care. Yeah.
He does care, but Zerglings don't, and Infestors don't, and it
Yeah,
should be
this
enough.
should be
Honestly,
enough.
he should probably be able to make S. I'm gonna be honest with you,
I agree.
especially since for a lot of commanders, there have been a lot of commanders you may have noticed where they have units where it's like they do kill themselves, but not fast. If they're inside of a green stat zone, they don't kill themselves anymore.
Yeah,
just like that.
Like at all. Yeah, just
Like,
that
they don't care.
ally buffing ability is so huge for Stat boy.
Reapers can't kill themselves while inside of it. Depths can't kill themselves while inside green zone.
Yeah.
Kerrigan's Hydras, if they're on creep and inside green zone, I'm pretty sure that means they don't kill themselves anymore, right? Like, it's just great.
It's just amazing.
Yeah,
How about
probably
you,
yes.
Twotuuu?
I would not use infestors just because that requires you to like, that's a lot of micro and turning back to purple, which is not green.
Yes.
I would just use the Blue Lords.
Dude, Mecha Battle Carrier Lords!
Yeah,
Wow,
I just
okay.
use those, and it's the same thing. You just, yeah.
All right.
Gary might kill himself, but his army, once you get like enough, once the enemies are big enough, you just don't Igor. You just regular attack and
activate the
you
overcharge.
satellite a green zone.
Yeah.
And the best
Alright.
part is, if you're throwing enough Zerglings at it, every time a Zergling dies, Gary gets more health regen. And if enough Zerglings are dying, Gary will just out-regenerate his damage. So he doesn't care.
Just run your dude lords away from the hybrids when they're about to explode, I guess, so you don't get yikes. Just have your
Honestly,
Zerglings hug
Stetmann's
the...
options are basically Zerglings plus whatever. You can put them with Banelings, you can put them with Broodlords,
Yeah, stuff like
you
that.
can with Festers. Oh, fun note, remember, Stetmann's Banelings still can't die to going nuclear. They just don't die to the nuke
That's
because
so-
Blizzard is so good at coding.
That's so funky.
Yay!
All right,
So
Step
basically,
Boy.
if you use Zergling Baneling, you could just ignore the going nuclear nukes because they'll do 10 damage to your Zerglings, which will get instantly healed off by Green Zone, and they just don't kill your Banelings for some reason.
All
So
right.
you just can ignore Nuke Rain with Ling Bane.
Step Boy S. I assume this is second prestige, right? Or
Oh,
any
yeah.
prestige?
You don't necessarily need it though this time because, of course, that just makes him like kill himself faster. So
Yeah.
if you don't use P2, I'd still use P2 personally, but it'll be less of a big disadvantage to not have P2 this time.
Okay.
Do not use P1.
Do not use P1. Well,
No, you want 2 charges.
Yeah, 2 charges of overcharge, 2 charges of Igor,
okay, but the advantage
teleport.
of P1 is that at least then your green zone can't get nuked. So if you're not good at microing overcharge, you might run into the problem of your green zone getting nuked. So P1, honestly, I think should be like, I think of all weeks, this is one where P1 is not much worse. It's basically the same power level between P0, P1, and P2. So
Yeah, I still
I would
use
say
the
it's
second
worse.
one. Anyway,
I mean, P2 is still the strongest, but I think it's by an actually very slight margin in this very specific situation.
guys, they're all S. Come on, let's move on. Stukov,
Yes.
where do we have him?
P3 bunkers and tanks. S.
Make sure you get the tanks.
Yes.
Don't mess it up. If you don't get the tanks, you do not have enough DPS to kill the trains unless your ally is bringing DPS.
How about
So
for
if you're
anti-air?
expecting to have to carry your ally, don't forget tanks. I've been burned by that too many times myself. Don't forget the tanks.
How about anti-air?
Troopers.
Oh yeah, just
Troopers.
the Marines. The Marines will kill everything. The only reason you need tanks is
The
so you have
train.
DPS for the trains.
All right.
Everything else not your Marines. P3 massive wall Marine. It'll kill everything except the train. They don't have enough DPS to kill the trains by themselves. Make sure you add some tanks, and the tanks will make sure you are fine. Everything dies.
Cool. So Stukov S. Swann, where do we have him?
So the laser drill just doesn't care. You group hug it with a couple SCVs, give it some emotional support, and it'll be fine. It doesn't care. So that will just carve apart waves and train escorts very easily. And then you just have to figure out how to kill the train. Yeah, that's the fun part. You can use... I would probably suggest using Wraiths because they're fast and can easily dodge nukes, avoid all the hybrid nukes, train nukes, or nuke rain and everything. But be careful because the Wraiths can fire like 2 volleys and then you have to go wait for them to heal. But because you already want to be move commanding your Wraiths because they have the whole fire while moving thing, you already are only firing like volleys manually with your Wraiths.
You know what?
So
That
it's
makes
not
sense.
that bad,
Yeah.
micro-wise, to say fire 2 volleys and go heal. Fire 2 volleys and go heal. Technically, you can fire more than 2 volleys, but I would prefer to use only like 2 or 3 volleys when I'm doing it because otherwise, like the margin gets too close and like something could go wrong and like one errant Psystorm wipes out all my Wraiths or something.
Something like that.
Right. So
Ladder.
yeah, just literally use the Wraiths to like 2 volleys on the train, heal 2 volleys on the train, whatever. Use the laser drill to kill all the waves. He's not S tier, but he's pretty solid. I think he can probably make A.
How about you, Twotuuu?
I don't think he's as good as the A commanders. The drill, like you can use concentrated beam every 3 minutes and you'll kill most of the train waves and you'll hit multiple carts. So like you can kill the first, your laser drill will go down every time you use it, but you'll kill a huge chunk of the enemies and deal lots of damage so that your Wraiths can go in and finish off the train. The trains also, I mean, if you're cloaked, you have % chance of evasion, so you can dodge some of the attacks that you do to yourself. So you can hit a few times before going back. I would say he's C.
Ooh. What do you think, Sticksbender?
I think that not using P1 is a mistake, honestly.
Why would you use P1?
Quite simply because then your laser drill, the laser drill of P1 can solo entire attack waves. Like the entire attack wave dies to just the laser drill plus floating factory. Even just if the floating factory is just on the edge of your base, like over the ramp where it's still in the mutator safe zone, so it's not getting nuke rained. The laser drill will be able to solo the entire wave, and with P1, your laser drill will never have downtime. It never has to die with P1. Unlike with other prestiges where whenever you use the call down, your laser drill goes down. With P1, your laser drill can be permanently up, so it can be permanently handling waves by itself, and that basically means that Swann has a very easy time with the waves and just has to worry about the hard part being killing the train itself.
All right. So where does it put us? What do you think, Twotuuu?
It seems like if you float factories out, they might get nuked, right? Like you need a lot of them, which means you have fewer Wraiths.
I would say basically I would say what you're doing with the factories in this case is remember if there are things that shoot up in the wave and they're shooting at the factory, the things that can't shoot up won't split off. The wave won't separate. So if you just have factories, the ramps, then you can just basically use the factories to tank. You just have a wall of factories, which if you're worried about it, you can have landed factories instead, but you just use factories as basically a meat shield while the drill just wipes out the entire wave by itself. A meat shield of factories inside the mutator safe zone should be able to handle the waves. You can add in a couple turrets behind, basically, and you put the turrets far enough back that basically you're expecting stragglers to get to the turrets, like stragglers who escape the wrath of the laser drill will get to the turrets.
wrath of the
And that way
laser.
it won't be enough for the turrets to kill themselves. And as long as it's only stragglers, the turrets won't kill themselves and they'll be able to wipe it all out. And yeah, and also you can just use like Hercules or Wraiths or your Wraith Ball to just basically spot the attack wave, and then you just let the laser drill wipe it out. Basically, in that way, you're engaging the attack waves by just getting vision of them. And whatever you're using to fight the attack waves, whatever Hercules or Wraith Ball or whatever you're flying around to get vision of the attack wave, it's not taking any damage because it's not the thing shooting the attack wave. The laser drill shooting the attack wave. But by microing that, you're able to kill the entire attack wave without losing anything, without taking any double-edged damage. You just wipe out the attack wave by just microing around, sitting just close enough to see it, not close enough to be hit by it.
Okay.
So I think that P1 Swann has a very, very easy time handling the attack waves on this map, and it just leaves him having to worry about trains with Wraith Micro as his primary concern.
What do you think?
I don't know. I feel like if you use I use P0 and just every S-core wave is just deleted immediately because they die to a concentrated beam. And in addition, like half the HP of each train is gone with each use.
You can only use that on one of the double trains though, and that's also going to be a bit dependent on which base you spawn in.
Oh, kind of.
Yeah,
Wait,
of.
so
Kind of is the correct term there.
so does the ranking differ depending on what strategy you choose to go for?
Basically
like
what we're
they're the same.
going,
It's just-
basically
it's
what we
not
have
like-
here is I would subscribe to the P1 strategy and I would say Swann is A. Twotuuu would subscribe to the P0 strategy and say Swann is B. So
Do you think Twotuuu that the P1 strategy, the heavy weapon specialist strategy, is A?
I feel like slow. It's really slow. Like I guess you're dealing you're dealing more damage to the waves, but you're dealing less damage to train. And yeah, so I don't know if the trade-off. I guess since you separate the train from the wave, then it might be easier to deal. You don't have to worry about like fighting stuff with the wraiths. I guess that's good. But like even with the pulse cannon thing or concentrated beam, sometimes I don't lose sometimes the laser doesn't die, so I use both. Sometimes I'm able to use both call down.
How about we put him in B for now and then decide later on whether he gets promoted to A based on where everyone else lands?
Okay.
Yeah, we'll discuss him later on. We don't want to get stuck in too much. Tychus, where do we have him?
Oh, Tychus, probably the worst one. So you can use Lone Wolf, but Lone Wolf, because he deals half damage to himself, so he could fight a little longer, but still not great. I would suggest using P3. Dog Walker is really good. If you don't know the throw 3 grenades with Sam and pick him up trick, then you're gonna get yourself killed a lot. The trick is basically you throw 3 grenades, you pick
At the
up
same
Sam
time.
with a medevac, then when the 3 grenades explode, then you drop him. After the grenades explode, then he takes no damage because 1 grenade that does 1,000 damage is enough to get him killed. So you're doing 3 of those each time. With Nikara, each grenade will do 1,250 damage, which is even better. So it's like you basically invigorating burst, throw 3 grenades, pick up, wait like 5 seconds so that, or 10 seconds so that all of them explode, and then drop him, and then continue fighting. It's like a rinse repeat pattern, and still not great, and still can mess up, and it's kind of enemy comp dependent. I would put Tychus in D.
Yeah.
Because if you mess up, he dies.
How about you, Sticksbender?
Yeah, that makes sense. Honestly, there's even an argument for putting him a bit lower, but I mean, when no one else is even in D tier, that seems a bit excessive
I had him
to
in E.
bully someone who does.
I played
technically
Tychus.
have-
I played Tychus. I have it in E. But if both of you are okay with D, let's put him in D.
Yeah, I mean, there's an argument for putting him in E. Oh boy, he's bad, but D is probably okay.
I put him in E, but I feel like since the listeners here are probably willing to like learn something to improve themselves, I think if they know how to do the Sam thing, it's not so bad. But if you don't, then yeah, he's E.
Also,
Vorazun.
you're still gonna use Sirius. You're still gonna use Sirius first. Most useful Tychus tip against double-edged. Go Sirius, get turret self-destruct upgrade, and chuck turrets at them, so the turrets will blow up and take out a good chunk of attack waves by dying.
I did bug
That way
abuse
Sirius
here.
doesn't have to die, because Sirius doesn't take damage from the turret blowing up and nuking the wave.
I did bug
So,
abuse.
use
I
that.
got Sirius and Sam at the same time.
Yeah. Rush your self-destruct turret upgrade, and then get your Sam fully set up with medevacs and his bomb upgrades to blow apart trains as best as you can. It's still bad, but it's workable. We can
Okay.
put him in. We'll put him in D, but only because having an entire gap tier between Tychus and everyone else feels slightly excessive, but only slightly excessive.
All right. Vorazun, where do we have him?
Vorazun. Shadow Fury is good. You're invulnerable while casting Shadow Fury, which means if you cast Shadow Fury, you don't take damage from double-edged during it. So, as long as you remember that your Dark Templar is a spellcaster, not an auto attacker, oh yeah, Vorazun can do fine. She'll be great against ground comps. Against air comps, Mass Stalker ? It's not great.
Dark Archons.
No, I'd rather Stalker than that.
Dark Archons. My control.
Basically, I would say kind of like Nova. She's A against ground, C against air. So we could probably put her in B tier.
You can also do the time stop thing on the train, so that's pretty neat. Yeah. How about you, Twotuuu?
She still can't kill air units.
How about you, Twotuuu?
Corsairs don't get themselves killed, right? They deal so little damage per shot.
Well, no. The problem is Corsairs.
When they
the
splash.
reason that Corsairs are good is because they have splash damage, and what happens is you put the enemy wave in a black hole, and the Corsairs delete it instantly.
Yes.
In this case, they delete themselves instantly too, because a single auto attack from the Corsair would probably be due. The point is, what you do to deal with error waves with Vorazun's Corsairs is you put them in a black hole, and then and that also removes all their armor. So each Corsair attack is doing like 300, 400 total damage. The Corsair has less than 200 health.
Yeah.
So it's gonna die.
That makes sense.
From a single attack. It'll attack once and it's dead. So basically, against air, I really think your best option is just mass stalkers. They do regenerate shields from blinking, so they do have shield regeneration, which will be converted to health regeneration by the double-edged, so they'll be okay.
Okay.
Truth be told, I'd say there's possibly an argument that her stalkers are maybe even better than Alarak slightly for this because of the fact that they actually like generate hit points to be turned into health with their shield regen instead of just having phasing armor. But basically she's not great against air.
Cool. So let her.
I put her. I think B is reasonable. I still think the time stop thing is not as hard as people say it is.
We've talked about it a few
terrible.
times now. We've talked about it a few times now, so I don't think we need to put the star on there anymore. So let's have him in B. Zagara, where do we have him?
Oh, this must be her day.
Yes.
P1 is very good. You just run Banelings and Scourge into attack waves, and then you finish off trains with the Zerglings, and you do that 9 times.
You double S.
And that's it. I wouldn't say double, but I think I did get both bonus trains.
All right, so let her. S. How about you, Sticksbender?
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, she's basically doing the same thing as Stetmann.
Really neat.
But like slightly different advantages and disadvantages.
You act like trail Banelings before they get nuked. That's it. Zeratul, where do we have him?
So Zeratul's a bit weird spot. He's got a couple options. You can use sentries, and if you're against Terran, sentries will be very funny because if you use their Reflecto shield, all the Terran units will be firing their projectiles back at themselves, which will not damage your sentry, even though the sentry caused the unit to kill itself. So that's great. Also, your sentries don't kill themselves from double-edged too quickly, and you can just, what you do is you like have most of them have the shield regeneration turned off of autocast, so they're actually attacking, and the rest have it turned on, and they'll be able to do a decent damage. It will not be enough to kill trains by itself, but is an option that exists, and I mean, you'll be able to do most of the train damage you need to do if you just get a bit of ally support. The other option, which is a little higher micro, but I think everyone would agree is definitely the stronger option, it's a lot higher micro, is just mass stalkers, and what you do is you just blink around, and the little shades they leave behind after blinking can attack without the stalker self taking damage. So because of that, it's basically just go mass stalker, blink aggressively at Amon, and then just don't shoot him. You just blink aggressively at him, and his stuff dies. Make sure you take void blink.
Just blink there, menacingly.
Menacingly blink at him, and then blink away from him. Just
also menacingly.
Blink into his face, blink to the side, refuse to elaborate further, blink away.
Yeah.
Zeratul gameplay.
Let her.
Probably A. Honestly,
what do you think,
the stalkers will be strong.
What do you think, Twotuuu?
I think the having to like worry about the stalker thing is a little bit more like it's different from the A commanders where you just attack normally and not have to worry too much. So I put him in B, but the shield guard strategy, I didn't know you should turn off the healing. I think that's what I was doing wrong. I tried the mass shield guard strategy and
the problem is what will happen is that they'll like attack one attack, they'll attack like one time, and then everyone will go, oh, shoot, someone's damaged. Everyone, drop attacking, start healing. And it's like, no, you need to shoot the enemy at some point.
Okay.
But yeah,
So
with ambushers, it's basically like blink, 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 attack, and then walk around, dance a bit, blink, then you blink, 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 attack, walk around. You repeat this process until everything is dead. And you want like a warp prism nearby so that you can hide. Zeratul is instead of Alarak, he's instead of a 1 minute cooldown, he's like basically it's 5 seconds,
5
but to be safe, you want like 10 seconds just to be sure. So you blink in, swipe once, blink out, walk, and then do your stalker things again. And then
yes,
it's necessary. So if you do that right, you get basically 3 hits.
okay.
Yes, so to clarify that on that, yes, remember that Zeratul actually has phasing armor, and because of the way his cleave is coded, for some reason, after the first enemy has the damage applied from cleave, it procs his phasing armor, and he gets his invulnerability, and then the cleave continues and hits all the rest of the stuff. So he'll only take damage from hitting one target when he cleaves an entire attack wave. The reason that you might not have noticed Zeratul's phasing armor is because unlike Mirages and Slayers, where it's 2 seconds of duration, Zeratul's is 0.25 seconds of duration. So it's a lot shorter, but there is still phasing armor in there, and it does still allow you to cleave while taking very little damage, and despite wiping out a giant chunk of attack wave. Just be careful with it, because, you know, if it's not off cooldown, you're in for a nasty sudden death experience.
That's really neat. So we're assuming second prestige here, right?
No, do not use P2. He'll
Okay.
kill himself.
So
No,
Nope.
no. All of the things we're using here don't actually have to worry about really taking damage from double-edged, because if the stalkers only attack once, they're not killing themselves from attacking once. And remember, Zeratul's cleave. So when he does that cleave, the first enemy it hits, it deals damage to him equal to the actual damage done to the unit, not the damage that would have been done if it was an infinite hit point unit. So if there's a Zergling in there, and that's the one that it registers as being hit first,
that's
Zeratul
like
will take 35 damage.
35.
Doesn't matter if his cleave is listed as deal 500. He will deal 35 damage to himself. Furthermore, he gains extra max shields for every artifact with P2, so it makes your Zeratul get continually tankier. So you actually also you're not just getting more damage on like any kind of like actually damaging yourself, you're getting more shields. So P2 is not really going to hurt you in any way. It's just going to mean that when you do your blink, blink, blink rotation, you do considerably more damage, and when you do your cleave, you do considerably more damage, and it'll be really helpful when you get to those like critical thresholds, like being able to one-shot Ravens, and then later eventually getting up to being able to one-shot like Banshees, Cyclones. Wait, no, Cyclones have 200 in co-op, so you never get that high on this map. But, you know, getting to those critical thresholds where you one-shot bigger and bigger units with your cleave will make it just more and more valuable to use that cleave strategy.
Yeah.
So I would 100% say P2.
2 points. One is that the cleave Zeratul thing, like the micro is very micro intensive. So if you can't do that while paying attention to your ambushers, then don't do it. Because if you don't pay attention, you're trying to do the cleave thing, and your ambushers attack, they'll kill themselves. If they attack like 3 times, you'll die. Second is I played both, and I played P2, and then I switched to P1 because I didn't want the 4th artifact. I didn't want more fragments. What happened was with P2, the ambushers deal less DPS later on because they can't normal attack anymore. Whereas with P1, they can still attack like twice before they have to stop. The blink, the ball, like sometimes they'll hit one of the random enemies instead of the train, which is like you're wasting time, and the blink cooldown isn't reduced, so you actually deal less damage with P2 because you can't attack normally. So what happens, like when it was towards the late game where the trains have more HP, I couldn't attack because I kept killing myself.
So what do you think?
Kind of, even if you have like say like 7 artifacts, you can still attack pretty normally with your stalkers, to be honest, because like basically, you could still attack 1 or 2 times, and basically the difference is with P1 you can attack like 3 times, and then with P2 you can attack like 2 times, but it does the same damage, because at the end of the day, remember, the heal rate for double-edged is flat. So I personally have always found like trying to like not use P2 because I'm worried about double-edged or anything has never actually made anything easier for me as Zeratul. I have found it. I didn't do this mutation in specific though, so I don't have quite as direct of experience as Twotuuu, but my experience with Zeratul, like playing lots of Zeratul, has been that using P2 against double-edged is still definitely better than not using P2 in my experience. So
I guess it just comes down
if you
to
don't
who you
have
trust.
basically, I'd say that based on Twotuu's thing, if you don't have P2, clearly you're not missing out on that much because he didn't find it necessarily easier with P2 anyways. But I don't think you're wrong to use P2 either.
But he's still A regardless, right?
I said B.
Oh yeah,
I think
B.
B actually makes sense. I have to agree, actually, looking at the people in A, and it's like, yeah, no, there's a lot of really easy commanders here.
Oh
in
yeah,
A.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't
That makes sense.
really
All right, let's put him in B. All right, so that is our tier. Those are our tiers for the week. No one deserves double S probably. So who's best in S? Karax.
Karax.
Okay, Karax.
Karax
I was about to say
is
I like
Solans.
Karax, but I also have a bias against Zerg commanders because I'm bad at Zerg and good at Protoss.
Yeah, Karax.
But if we agree on it's
has
Karax, then yay.
Repair Beam, Unity Barrier, which also works on your ally. Super Chrono if you go for the second Prestige. You have just top bar, so good. You have Reviving Zealots, so they can tank 2 nukes, and just run back, just be fine. Carriers also good. Yeah, Karax is top of S. Second is
Probably
Stetmann.
Stetmann.
Yeah, he has Green Zone, so it's the next best thing to having
Also
Unity
Zagara.
Barrier. Yeah.
Stetmann
about
is slightly
Zagara
better
over
Zagara
here?
in my opinion.
All right. Then third is actual Zagara.
Yeah.
All right. Then
I
Stukov
think it was
is
basically ordered right already, wasn't it?
just
wait,
Zagara moves ahead of Stukov. There we go.
Yeah.
For a Dehaka
Artanis?
or Artanis, I'm okay with that. Yeah, Garden
I would
Shell
have to agree there.
helps your ally. Just really good. Yeah, sure. Garden Shell guy.
I think Jimmy is probably next.
Spider
actually.
Mines because of Spider Mines.
Because of Spider Mines and also just because Marines are good. If you can micro Marines, Jimmy could be S if you can. Jimmy is S if you've got good micro.
Okay, that makes sense.
Go.
If you have bad micro, he's definitely still A. And if you really have bad micro macro, he could probably drop down to B. Jimmy is like a high skill expression commander here. But if you have solid micro and macro, he's an S candidate. Jimmy is good here. His Marines are solid.
I would say Han Horner is better than Raynor, just because the macro aspect is a lot less intense.
Easier.
A lot easier.
But they don't have Spider Mines.
The only concern I would have with Han Horner is the fact that like a common thing that I've seen people with slightly weaker macro run into is that with Jimmy you could just add more barracks. With Han and Horner, if you are letting up on your macro at all, you're going to discover that 5 galleons just isn't enough. It really isn't. It sucks that they limit us to only 5 because it basically means you have to be super on top of things to be able to produce Reapers fast enough. Yeah, I think Han and Horner goes below Raynor just because ironically the skill floor for their macro actually feels slightly higher to me just because of the cap on their production and
So
the fact
it's-
that their production is at risk of being nuked. If your production gets
That's
nuked
true.
and 5 galleons is barely enough production as is, you can have things spiral out of control in a way that Raynor is slightly less prone to because your barracks are relatively safe inside of your base. Where
The
you can
thing
just
is,
keep
with
moving around.
Han Horner, you're always looking at your galleons, and you can always hang around the edge of the cliff.
Yeah, kind of.
Because you don't have to ever.
You know
look
what?
back at
Let's
your
call it a
base for
tie.
anything.
Let's just
It's
call it a
pretty
tie.
close.
Yeah, let's call it a
It's
tie.
pretty close between
Han and
the
Horner
two.
and Raynor. I'll just put them alphabetically, but it's a tie. There we go. And then we have Dehaka.
No, not again with Han and Horner beating Raynor.
Dehaka or Arcturus? I think Dehaka.
I would say probably Dehaka.
Yeah, he doesn't have the train DPS, but he just has the everything else DPS.
Like Mengsk is literally in here being bad Raynor because he's like, I've got Marines, but worse.
Yeah.
But
All
at
right.
least my medics are slightly better.
Okay, so for B, who's best? Swann was an A candidate, right? Do we put him top of
I'd
B?
say I would personally definitely say Swann, yeah.
Twotuuu. Swann top of B?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Abathur was.
Abathur's next, yeah.
Abathur
Abathur's
next.
also pretty good.
Okay.
Like honestly, it's tight between Swann and Abathur because remember I also kind of felt like Abathur was a candidate
Oh
for A.
yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. And then Vorazun because of
I
the
think-
train bug thing or the train thing.
These three are comp dependent-ish. I
Yeah.
would say Vorazun's at the bottom.
Oh, Vorazun's
because
the
of
bottom.
air.
Okay. I'm
Yeah,
okay with that.
she is the most comp
Comp-dependent.
dependent of the three. Zeratul is the least comp dependent of the three. So Zeratul, Nova, and Vorazun makes sense to me.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Cool. Top of C.
I'd say Kerrigan or Phoenix. Oh, Phoenix, remember, is like he's either B or D depending on how well adepts work. They're untested. They're basically untested in this specific mutation.
Okay.
By my best guess, Phoenix honestly potentially should actually be in B, but I'm not 100% confident in that guess yet. So that's why he's in C.
He's in the C
So
for now.
Phoenix at the top of C seems fine for that.
Are you okay with that too?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
And then
And
the next
then
would be
Kerrigan,
Kerrigan.
then
Absolutely.
Alarak.
Kerrigan is pretty
Yeah.
solid, actually.
All right. Then the only guy in D is Tychus. There we go, guys.
Yes.
Okay.
The only question for him is would we demote him to E? And I think we're still going to stick to he's okay. We can give him a break. We can cut him some slack.
All right, guys. Watch Twotuuu and Sticksbender's channels, and we'll link them down below. And I'll see you guys next time.